Hey folks, it is October the 1st and we're going to go through some more. Hey, shh. I can't hear myself talk to myself. It's October the 1st and today we're going to go over some more of that chapter that I printed out for you. You can find that on the Google Classroom, and then we're going to go through a bit more of our notes, and for you we're going to call that a day. But make sure you complete that assignment that I posted for you on the Google Classroom. All right, kids, here, 1 second. Let me get my document camera because I want to do it that way. It's the other way. So. There you go. All right, so this time we started on page 19. And so, like I said earlier, some of the major points had to do with his thesis was that economic freedom and individual freedom, they have to rely on each other. They have to. And so here he's talking about, he says, liberal conceives men as imperfect beings, preventing bad people from doing harm, as of enabling good people to do good. So he's saying that what he's trying to make the case here for is that there's different ways to look at it. It starts at a philosophical level when you're regarding economics and when you're regarding government. So if you have an inherent belief that people are generally good, then you tend to be more apt to allow people to make their own choices and rely less on rules. Because what's a rule and what's a law? Well, it's an arbitrary use of force or coercion to make sure people do the right thing. Well, think about it. Laws use like coercion has to do with it has to do with both the carrot and the stick. So there are some laws out there that give people rewards for doing the right kind of thing according to the law, and there's some things that do punishments. And so if he's saying if you're the mindset where you believe that people are imperfect beings and that like here's the thing. Yeah.
In France, if you raise 7 children, none would go to jail within 30 years. You get a special award from the government.
That's interesting, yeah, because I mean, well, when you think about it, like in old terms, especially, like people who had a lot of kids couldn't really watch, so maybe they got in trouble. So maybe they're kind of like, hey, you raised your kids right. Let's go ahead and move on from here. So the basic problem of social organization is how to coordinate the economic activities of large numbers of people. And this is something that in central planned economies, it's always a big deal. Like, I don't know if I told you, but like one of the things about the Soviets is that in Soviet Russia, people were so afraid to talk about ideas that weren't the official ideas that even the KGB, the Soviet spy network, when they were trying to figure out why the U.S. economy was doing so much better than theirs, they couldn't even voice the opinion that maybe it's because we weren't communist. So instead, they said the reason we were doing so well is because we were better communists than they were. And so they theorized that how we did it was through central planning with supercomputers. So they spent a lot of their resources and times in the KGB trying to find out which mountain in America had the big bunker complex filled with computers planning our economy. And so it was wasted time. So here you see what it is personal freedom. They're not allowed to think outside the box. No economic freedom. So they're looking for it like to try to figure out how our economy was like there. So it goes to show if you limit people's freedom enough, they can't even problem solve.
We weren't far off from a big important bunker hidden somewhere in the mountains, the Greenbrier bunker.
Well, we did have computers for wargaming and for doing like our early internet system with the military, and for like tracking, like intercepting missiles and stuff like that. but we didn't have one for like running the U.S. economy to make sure that Walmart had enough teddy bears on the shelf. You know, I mean, no.
I'm just saying they weren't that far off with a big old important funder hidden.
Well, they knew we were much better at building computers than them. Their computers, like, were nasty or trashy. They, like, by the time we were moving to circuit boards and stuff like that, they were still using like vacuum tubes and stuff. You know, they weren't doing that well. So literally millions of people are involved in providing one another with their daily bread, let alone with their yearly automobiles. So what he's saying here is this has to do with division of labor, like we were talking about with our warm-up question. If you have division of labor, if you remember Adam Smith, he's talking about the invisible hand of the economy. Here we go. We're talking about nearly 300 years later, well, over, and we're still making the argument that by people doing the best thing that they're able to do and trading that service or good, other people do it too. And we're all doing very well because of it. Society advances because we're all doing the best and we're trading the best. The challenge, however, to this belief in liberty is to reconcile this widespread independence with individual freedom. So what he's saying here is that people can't deny that people are doing better, but people who often go against the idea of trade, it isn't to say that the economy is doing better. They're saying that not everyone has the same amount of rights, and then something we brought up before is equality. So they're saying that freedom comes with dangers because it can come with winners and losers. And so he's talking about two people who oppose it. There's only two ways coordinating economic activities in millions. One is direct central involving the use of coercion. So this is like totalitarians. You can think about like fascists, communists, things like that. The other is voluntary cooperation of individuals and technique in the marketplace. And this is something that you have especially strong in what we call a trust-based society. And what's a trust-based society?
Is that true?
Yeah, well, you believe a stranger is not out there to get you. When you meet somebody and you buy something from them, you're sure that most likely it's going to be okay. Well, it's the same like this. It also goes for personal safety. Like here, like down Broadway, like a couple of girls can go jogging by themselves and not worry too much that they're going to get grabbed up by a snatch van and vanish. Whereas there's places in the world where that's not going to happen because they're not coming home. It's a trust-based society. We trust that all those people going up and down the road aren't going to go do something violent or dangerous. Yeah.
How much of this is like based on like trust on the dollar itself?
And he's going to go to that. So that's going to be the function of government later. So there we have something like that. However, as far as like individuals, like here's an example, eBay. eBay's not a lot of people use eBay that much anymore, but when eBay first came out, they thought it was going to go under because they thought it was just going to be people selling a bunch of junk and not delivering the things they got paid for. So a whole bunch of insurance companies came out to insure people in their purchases and their selling. Those companies went under because people turned out to be mostly honest on eBay. Even though they're strangers across the world, across the country, most eBay purchases are actually pretty good.
Yeah,
you know, it's. I mean, sometimes you get like knockoff junk, and you're like, but usually it's good. So that's a trust-based society. This happens whenever you have people with personal amount, and when you have that belief that most people are going to do the right thing. So let me see. The possibility of coordination through voluntary cooperation rests in that both parties to an economic transaction benefit. So both sides of a trade have to trust that they're going to get something out of it. I trust I'm going to get $5 that's actually $5 from you, and you trust that you're going to get a box of smelly stickers from me or whatever you want. I don't know. Yeah.
So a game I play has like an online economy, and for some reason that's a really weird thing where you can't. If you give someone something, you have to trust them that they'll give you what you want because the monetary thing caps have become so inflated,
Mhm.
so they're useless. And the best way to do it is to barter with ammo and items.
Okay.
And you have to trust is if I'm giving you this weapon, you're gonna give me this weapon, and you're not just gonna log off and ban and
Okay.
block me.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. My brother's really into MMOs, right? Really into MMOs. And yeah, he talks about like used to be in the older ones, yeah, people just go up and trade with each other and they had to trust on that trade. But now they got like these systems where they put it like into something and it just sells it for you or something like that. Most of
Yeah. Nowadays,
So-
so my game is still pretty young, so it doesn't have that.
them. Okay. So, but in any case, you see that even in a video game, people usually trust that it's going to work out. Usually, sometimes people get
It
scammed.
does like 99% of the time. I've only had one
Yeah.
trade where the guy has jumped off and blocked because
Yeah.
I'm part of like I don't know what you call it, but it's kind of like it's like a guild, and we all know who we're trading with. If we know who we're trading with, if they mess up on a trade, they can get heavily reprimanded by said server.
Okay.
So I usually do my trading because I've only done my trading once just randomly, and that was a bad idea.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Exchange can therefore bring about coordination without coercion. So if both sides believe they're going to benefit, it lessens the need for laws in the exchange, is what he's saying. A free private enterprise exchange economy, what we have been calling competitive capitalism. So it's the same thing. Each household uses the resources it controls to produce. So he's talking about the simple Robinson Crusoe example, as if you just had like a primitive economy. Each household uses the resources it controls to produce goods and services that exchanges for goods and services produced by other households. Again, this is just like Adam Smith, on terms mutually acceptable to the two parties to the bargain. It is therefore enabled to satisfy its wants indirectly by producing goods and services for others rather than directly by producing goods for its own immediate use. So it's like it's way beyond subsistence farming, because if you think about people living on a tropical island, they might all just be trying to survive and get the things that they need for themselves to get through the day. It's one of those things that sets humans apart from animals. Even ancient primitive farmers knew that whenever you grow crops, you have to keep some of that seed, some of that grain to have a seed plant for the next season. Because if you eat that, you're going to die next year. Animals don't do that. Animals will just eat and eat. Look at a wolf. They'll eat like something like almost 3/4 of their body weight sometimes if they're starving, right? They will just like eat an elk until they are just beer belly on the ground. Humans don't do that. We try to save things. We try to preserve, and we're smart enough to be interconnected.
Even our bodies try to save things. Like the way sumo wrestlers get so big is actually because they skip breakfast and they have just 2 giant meals with no snacks in between.
Okay. Here,
They're trying to train their fat cells.
but he's saying this is made possible by division of labor. No exchange will take place unless both parties can benefit, just like we said earlier. In a modern society, we have gone much further, whereas we have intermediaries. So we're just not just trading with one another. We have suppliers. We have different parts in supply chains. We have so many things that go into a very, very complex economy. Central characteristic of the market technique of achieving coordination is fully displayed in the simple exchange economy that contains neither enterprises nor money. Cooperation is strictly individual and voluntary, provided A, that the enterprises are private, and B, that they're able to do every transaction voluntarily. There is examples where you have Maoist China, where you're going to have things that go all the way back to like a medieval economy, where they set the price of how much things have to sell. The government has to confiscate so much of it. The government tells you that you may only sell to these people, and it ruined the economy worse and worse until finally the government said, we have a monopoly on all rice or wheat or pigs or any of these things. And next thing you know, massive amounts of people are starving. The birth rate's like almost to nothing because even the babies are, because they starve first. And it's just very, very sad. So it can lead to disastrous results. The basic requisite for this maintenance of law and order is to prevent physical coercion of one individual by another and enforce contracts voluntarily. He's talking about the role of government, thus giving substance to private. A monopoly, however, can go against this. So it's not just government forces that could make rules and coercion that could prevent these things, but it's also if monopolies are allowed to exist, they can harm the individual. And so a lot of different internet startups and companies have complained about this, from everything ranging from music, videos, or even selling products online today. The consumer is protected from coercion by the seller because of the presence of other sellers who he can deal. So he's talking about natural protections. If there is diversity and choice in who you can sell to, buy from, or work for, then there is competition for you as a person. People are competing for your labor so you can get the best wages. You are competing for the best workers, and sellers are competing for you to buy their products. And the central market does this impersonally without centralized authority. By impersonally, we mean it is based on the idea that the best person gets the job, regardless of any of your personal characteristics. Because if you're just trying to get the best worker, you don't care what that worker looks like, what that worker does in their private time, or any of those things. You just need somebody who can accomplish the task. So it's non-judgmental. A major source of objection to a free economy is precisely that it does this task so well. It gives people what they want instead of what a particular group thinks we want. So it takes away control from the people who want to control you. That freedom does this. Underlying most arguments against the free market is the lack of belief in freedom itself. So, of course, that's the thing. Our economy, going all the way back to the ideas of Adam Smith, Old Stockton, is based on the idea of individual freedom. But if you don't believe in individual freedom, if you believe in like a materialistic mindset, as we will see later on with Karl Marx, because Marx doesn't believe in freedom, what he believes is that people are driven by only a handful of things. You want to eat, you want to drink, and you want to make other human beings and be comfortable. That's it. That's Marxism. You're just revolved around these items just like an animal. It is. But that's what the whole basis of Marxism is about, is that people are animals trying to seek animal needs. And see, that's well, we'll see.
It's not stupid, but it's not.
Well, see, Marxists would say that that's part of a superstitious belief there itself. And that even things like your emotions to believe this is just a series of balanced chemicals in your brain.
And I think that is a relevance of these paths.
Okay.
But for people who say that religion is also moral. Perhaps it is, but as of now, there's still people still use it. Now, materialism being like one of the, I guess you could say, like kind of final solutions
Mhm.
of science.
Okay.
They said that the more we're learning about the human body, the more we realize we don't know about like how our mind works and like all that crazy stuff. And then you've got stuff like psychedelics, or your mind, what that does to your mind, what your mind's giving you lost in that state.
And yeah, there's a lot of theories on things like that, such as dream states and stuff like that. Yeah. Yes, you're right. There are limits to the scientific method, because the scientific method is trapped within the balance of matter, because you can measure matter and test matter. But you can't, scientific method can't test what it cannot measure. So, I mean, it's a possibility. Yeah, and there's a lot of open ground, right? Like, there is a lot of open ground. Yeah, they say that. Yeah.
It's because we can't explore the ocean. Because it's such like a, it's such a
For sure.
after a certain point, it's just almost impossible for our
Right.
to go down there.
It's crazy.
And we've actually pushed space so far, it's millions of miles.
Because it's so empty. Yeah, it's so empty, we're able to do a lot more with sensors and things like that.
There's not enough space to pull it out.
As far as we know, yes. Yeah. I mean, but hey, back to this. Let's go finish this up. So, the existence of a free market does not, of course, eliminate the need for government, because it needs government to determine the rules and act as an umpire.
what the market does is to reduce greatly the range of issues that must be decided through political means. So he's saying that you have to have, like, people exchange, like, remember, his thesis is economic freedom is individual freedom. And he's saying economic freedom is able to run on its own. However, it needs somebody to act and to make sure that it is fair. See, it permits wide diversity in its political terms, a system of proportional representation in the economy. He's talking about each man can vote, as it were, for the color of tie he wants to get. So it's a democratic process in itself. When you have a free market, you can buy whatever you want with your money. If you're in the minority, if you're the only person in the world who wants a lime green tie, somebody's probably going to make it because they want your money as long as you're willing to pay for it. Even if the rest of the world tells you it's ugly, you've got the money to do it. You get to do it. If you're a democracy, because you can't. There is no minority smaller than the individual, and so the minority of one can always make a decision in front of him cash. Right, cell phone, Michael. Okay, good. All right. So the features of the market, characteristics and implications go far beyond the narrowly economic political freedom means the absence of coercion of a man by his fellow man. So coercion, again, that's where you have something arbitrarily deciding what you can and cannot do, and that's done through means of the law. The preservation of freedom requires the elimination of such concentration of power to the fullest extent. So what he's going to make the case here, and we'll probably talk more about this tomorrow, is that governmental forces, and this has been true in United States history and history of many countries in the world, it tends to be like a central force, right? It goes towards the center. It concentrates like gravity all to the spot. We see this like in American politics. The power of government used to be in the town, the county, the state, but now it is more and more towards the federal government, that's centralized authority. Centrist powers have been a major growing feature in many countries. We've seen this in Mexico, we've seen this in Europe, we've seen this throughout the world. And so what he's saying here is that when you have this happening, one thing that can be a check and balance against the growth of one central government is the economy, because if it's kept from separate hands, separate from a government, it can help make sure that a government is more based on a location rather than a central authority. And he's going to make this argument here and on our next reading next time. So he starts by making the case that if you live in a socialist government, you do not have the power to make a radical uprising or change in the government, because everything's owned by the government. And the last thing the government wants to do is let you use its stuff to change the government. However, we're going to see when we come back next time. If you live in a capitalist society, if you want to change the government, you may do so because you own your own stuff and you can make your own choices with that stuff. So he points out that there's always going to be a leaning where capitalist societies move towards socialism, because it can. Whereas socialist countries have a hard time breaking out of that shell because the individual has less rights. So, what do y'all think? Is he right? Is he wrong? Okay. But yeah, like I said, we will read some socialist stuff later on. I mean, because you see here a lot of this argument is built on the idea of liberty and freedom first. And he makes the claim, if you have liberty and freedom, everyone's going to turn out to be a lot better off together. But we're going to see the socialist argument is that whenever you have this kind of thing, there are some people who win and other people who lose. And that's just not fair to the fellow around you. So we'll see a bit about that later. Now, what time's this class? Okay. Hey, I think we're going to have to nix the notes today. So, yeah. So we're going to go ahead and end the lecture for today. Make sure you can keep your assignment on there. We'll probably take some notes next time. Talk to you later, kids.
they're like,